Well, when it comes to overtime in general, I mean, you have to follow whatever that state guideline is for overtime, regardless of whatever the employee is working. Essentially, when it comes to more seasonal work and trying to avoid so much overtime, it would really be important for you to be on top of your scheduling. So, if you're anticipating to have a certain amount of work being done, but you're only going to have about 4 employees on, and that work is going to exceed, 4 employees at 8 hours, then you might want to look at hiring some additional employees to cover some of those additional hours or additional work that may have to happen during that time, especially if you're looking at like snow plowers and those like, street workers and stuff during the holidays. Like, you don't know really what that's going to entail or how much time that's going to take. So really making sure that you're staffed with enough employees to make sure that you're completing those projects, and then also trying to not exceed too much overtime. So it's really just about how much you're willing to go overhead on payroll, or if you're really trying to stay within that budget, which would result in having more employees on staff during that time. That's a little bit more like HR when it comes to, determining that termination or that final pay. When you're hiring somebody, you want to make sure that you're within the guidelines for that seasonal or that temp employee. Are you hiring a part-time employee? Are you hiring a seasonal employee that's going to come back every single year at the same season? Are you hiring a temp that you can use throughout the seasons, and even when it's heavy season time or off season time? So really looking at what that standard's going to be for that employee and what type of hours you're going to be requiring of them. What's their start and their end date? Normally when you're hiring temp employees or part-time employees, there's a very defined timeline of how long that period will last. So just making sure you're identifying those things in offer letters and the hiring process, and making sure that you're very clear about that. Now, obviously, you can always extend it for whatever you've had listed on that time, but just making sure that you're really in line with ensuring that all that paperwork matches up. And then by the time that period ends, then it's just a matter of paying out those final pays based off of the state. So if you're required to pay on same day as the last day, if you have until the next pay period check date to pay them for their final pay, it really just depends on what state you're processing in. That'll determine when you have to have that final pay to those employees. It's essentially going to be the same thing as regular payroll. So commissions will determine taxes being taken out based off of how much you're getting. So depending on what threshold you're at, what tax bracket you get into, that will determine that. When you're running into tips and stuff, some states you can kind of lower their wages depending on how much they're getting in tips. Some states like California, you have to obviously pay out all tips and all hours and all minimum wage requirements for that. And then it just depends on if they're getting cash, if you're getting credit card tips, if you're entitled to a tip of whatever that contract or that job is. It will determine on how you set that job up, or how you express to your employees how that pay is going to be issued out to them. But you really want to make sure that you stay within the guidelines on how to pay that out. So if it's cash tips, then the employee walked away with those tips. So all it is just now reporting it and recording it on payroll, so that way you're taxed for it. If it's credit card tips or tips that are going to be added to your payroll, then it's automatically going to be paid out to you within your gross earnings, and then taxed on like a regular hours and overtime hours and double time hours. It'll essentially match that. So it really just depends on how you're getting that paid. And then obviously the amount that you get paid will determine how much you're going to be deducted on taxes.